Hello, this is Steve from ACCA So, when talking about the structure of the organisation, there will be formal structure within the organisation. What I'm trying to get at here is that, think about the accountant. The accountant should report his findings, his job, to the financial manager. What if the financial manager has left the company and replace it with the new financial manager called Lily? So from that perspective, the accountant should report his work to Lily, okay? Whether or not it's, irrespective of Lily is the new financial manager to a company, but it is the formal structure by the organisation saying that, one of the, it's like the internal control procedures by the company is that the accountant should report his work to the financial manager, and from that perspective, this is the formal structure. But when talking about the informal structure, on the other hand, what I'm trying to get at here is that, well, I can play badminton, not necessarily with my financial manager, but rather I'm going to play badminton with my best friend, with our company, within our company. So the key here is talking about the friendship, or in other words, relationship. So the informal structures are the social arrangements based upon friendship or relationship, just to group the employees together. Okay, so this is the idea behind it. So once we've understood the idea behind the informal structure, the first thing we would like to talk about is the characteristic of the informal structures, okay, within the organisation. And once we look at that, of course, whether or not they have certain advantages and disadvantages. And for the disadvantages, on the other hand, how we are going to minimize the disadvantages of those informal structures within a company. So let's kick off by having a look at the first one, which is the characteristic of the informal structures. So there are basically four characteristics of the informal structure, where I'm going to use a graph to help you remember that. So there will be two or more employees over here. So the first characteristic is that they have the social relationship. Okay, so for example, as my previous example would be, I don't have to report, I don't have to play badminton or play table tennis or go to ball with my financial manager, but I can go to ball, I can play badminton, table tennis, etc. with my best friend, with our company. So this is about social bits, okay, rather than the formal bits. And the second characteristic of the informal structures would be the communication between the employees would be informal. So what do I mean by informal communication is quite straightforward, really. So I'll give you the example. My best friend is Tony. Fine. So I want to say to Tony, I don't know, in the test, so in the test, I'm not trying to say that, dear Tony, I'd like to go to play badminton with you tonight. Kind regards, Steve. I'm not saying that thing, because we are friends, right? So we're not going to say some formal words, okay, such as in the organisation would do. No, I'm trying to say to you, well, bro, let's go to play badminton tonight. Yes, just a simple test. So this is the informal communication. The third characteristic would be that the way the employees would do things would be informal. So what do I mean by informal ways to do things is that, firstly, they'll be trying to use something called the shortcuts. So when talking about the shortcuts over here, a very straightforward example I'll give my students would be, before you actually get the reimbursement as a result of spending some expenses. So for example, I have gone traveling for working purposes, incurred some expenses, so for example like $200. So I want to get the money back from the company. So if this is the case, before I actually get the reimbursement of those $200 from the finance department, what I need to do is that I need to present the receipt to the finance department. Okay, but what if I forgot to take the receipt with me today? So, because we are friends with one of the members, one of the cashiers within the finance department called Cassie, fine, we are friends, that will be no problem. And then, well, we are friends. So I'm going to say to Kathy, well, Kathy, will you provide me with the money today? I'm going to give you the receipt tomorrow. So you can see here, I'm using the shortcut to get the money out from the company. Because we are friends, we know each other. Maybe Cassie will break her rule of trying to give the money to me first before I give her the receipt tomorrow. Okay, so this is it. The next way that the employees within the company may do things informally would be something called lobbying. So an example I'll give you is that, well, we are friends with general manager within the organization. I'm going to lobby him to try to promote me. But one of the hard conditions of promoting an employee within a company would be you need to work within this company at least for 2 years. But rather, I have just worked for this company just 1 year. But because we are friends with the general manager, and we can lobby him, we can persuade him to try to promote me, even though I do not fulfill the condition that is set by the company. Okay, so this is the informal ways that the employees may do things within the organization. And final characteristic is that among those employees within the informal structure, there will be something called the informal structure leader. So, what do I mean by that is, well, among those employees, there will be a leader, yes, trying to arrange different social activities for different employees within this group. So from that perspective, is that leader the same as the leader within the formal structure? Which means, well, my leader is the financial manager. Is that financial manager would be the informal leader, informal structure leader? Well, the answer is no, maybe no, yes. Because within the informal structure here, the leader may be the employees that is lower than our position. So for example, I'm the financial manager. Maybe the leader within the informal structure would be the cashier. Because the cashier has passion so that they can group our employees together and arrange different activities for our employees. So from that perspective, of course, the structure, the power structure here, I'm going to change the word, informal structure, power structure. The power structure here for the informal structure will be quite different from the formal structure. Okay, so these are the 4 basic characteristics you need to remember in the exam. Okay, so we've been taught the first one. The second one, once we've looked at the characteristic, we now come to comment. Is that good or bad? What do you think? So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the comment about those informal structures within the organization. Of course, there will be advantages. So the first advantage is that any of this news can be quickly spreading within the organization. So for example, if the company decides to promote one particular manager within the organization, before a notice of promotion is actually placed, of course, maybe the employees within the organisation will know who is going to be promoted. Because, you know, lots of gossips will be spreading within this organisation. Yes? So, for trying to use the informal structure will help spreading the news within the organisation quickly. Of course, it will encourage the better communication. It will make the company more efficient of doing things. So, one of the examples I'll give my students is that you have a tall structure within the organisation. So let me write it here. You have a tall structure within the organisation. If you found a problem here, so for example, when I was an auditor, when I did the, trying to check whether or not there will be a fraud happening within a company, so the accountant here, the financial manager here, a financial controller, I should say, the financial controller here has found a particular fraud that is committed by the financial manager. So from that perspective, that the financial controller should report to the financial manager report to the finance director, because this fraud is involving the financial manager here. So from that perspective, if the financial controller found the fraud committed by the financial manager and report to the financial manager, and the financial manager would try to, throw it away. Just, leave it, okay? Not to report to the finance director. So from that perspective, well, we can't convey this message to the finance director. So this is not good, is it? Because by doing so, of course, the financial manager will take the money from the company into his own pocket. So from that perspective, it's not good, because the problem has not been reported to the finance director, even the CEO within the organisation, and even the board of directors as well. So from this perspective, we would like to encourage the informal structure. So for example, for the financial controller over here has found a fraud, and he and the general manager are friends. Very good friends, because they're going to play basketball, each day, every day, so that will be fantastic. So when trying to have a break after playing the basketball, of course they will have some conversation between the two. Of course, by trying to, say something towards the fraud to the general manager by the financial controller, will help the general manager to notice a fraud is happening within the organisation. Not necessarily report to these affairs to each of the manager over here. Okay. So from that perspective, of course, it will make better communication and make the company do things more efficiently. And of course, by having such an informal structure, it will make the employees relaxed, okay? Not necessarily just working towards, the profits within the organisation, but rather I'm going to hold some sort of social arrangement. For example, trying to go to bar together, trying to play basketball, trying to do things together. So by doing so, of course, it will make the employees within the company more relaxed. And once they are relaxed, of course, they will dedicate themselves into doing the work shortly, okay, and more effectively as well. For the disadvantages of this informal structure, firstly, maybe the information spreading will be inaccurate, and also the information will be negative. So for example, one of the very common example I'll give my student is that before a company A is bought by the company B, in other words, before a company A is consolidated by the company B, of course, the employees within a company A knows that the company is going to be bought by another company. So before the company is actually bought by the other company, they know that they will be fired after the company has been bought by another company. So from that perspective, then the employees within the existing company spread this news: our company is going to be bought by another company, I will lose our jobs. 1 month before the company is actually bought by another company, of course the employees within the company will try to do things negatively rather than positively. Some of them may try to steal the asset from the company into his own pocket. Some employees may just to sit there doing nothing, but still getting paid. So from that perspective, by using informal structures, we have groups of friends together trying to spread this negative news. Of course, it will hinder the overall changing process by the company later on. Okay, and by doing so, it will divert the energy when trying to work within the organisation by the employees. Okay, because they're focusing on the negative part, not the positive side. So they're going to ignore the profit bit, but rather they're going to think about many ways to try to steal the asset from the company before they are actually being fired. Okay, so this is the common bit about the informal structures. It's good and it's bad. So tick for that. And for the downside bit, which is the disadvantages, how we're going to minimize it. Of course, we have 3 basic ways to try to minimize the downside bits of the informal structure. Okay, there will be 3 ways we can do that. First way we can do is to meet the needs of the employees within a company. Because we are human beings, we have emotions. Okay, we can't work like a machine all day long. So from that perspective, from the formal structures perspective, you should do this and you should do that, you should do this and you should do that, but not necessarily this is the case in the real life. So from that perspective, because the employees within a company, we are human beings, we need social arrangements, we need social activities. So what the company is going to do nowadays, quite often, is that they're going to group employees together to have dinner together, to have sports together, to go to bar together, to have different social activities. So from that perspective, we're going to incorporate the informal bit into the formal bit, which means, well, it will make our, social activities, grouping employees together more regularly, okay? From the formal structures perspective, it will be a culture of a company, okay? Rather than just letting individuals trying to get together, but rather what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say to the employees that we have social activities each year, each day, and each week, every month as well, okay? The next way we can minimize the downside bit is that we are going to eliminate the informal leaders. What do I mean by that is I'm trying to get at for the changing process within the organisation. So, for example, like your high-tech companies, your operational staff will be focusing on how to develop a particular software. They like to write different languages within the software package so that they're going to develop the software. But one day, your company says to those operational staff, I am going to change your way to write out your software, write out your language towards the software. From the software developer's perspective, are they going to accept this change? Well, probably no. Because this is about the professional work. So for the professional work, if you're going to change their behaviour, especially for the professional things, they are reluctant to do so quite often in the real world. So before we actually place this notice that I should change the way you're going to do the work, maybe that the informal leaders, which means, well, maybe they group together each day, trying to go to bar, go to spot, and then one of the leader within the team will tell them, well, I thought that the company is going to change our ways to do things. I'm going to spread these negative things, negative news within our team. And from that perspective, it will make our team, negatively do the things later on, because your company is not accepting my way to do things. So I'm not going to work with you very positively. So how are we going to do that? Of course, we're going to eliminate the informal leaders by telling them you should spread the reasons why the operational staff should change their way to do things. Maybe because they can make more money. Maybe because, well, our company will give them a free course. Try to earn them a extra qualification after attending the course, and they should change their way to do things. Keep up to date with the with the worldwide nowadays. And by doing so, of course, they will be promoted as well. So you need to, try to spread those news to them. Okay, if you're not going to do that, I'm going to fire you. Okay, so try to eliminate the informal leaders. Of course, another way we can do is to try to do something called integration, which means I'm going to send our own staff within our company, such as managers within our company, to their team. Try to spread this news within their team, telling them the benefits of changing their way they're going to develop the software, such as, well, getting promoted, getting more salary, more bonuses, and the company's wealth will be increased as well, etc. Okay, so these are the 3 ways we can try to minimize the downside bits of the informal structure. So we finish off the informal structure in this particular section.